Hello, welcome to Watch Wisely. Our topic today is the movie Milk. I am one of your hosts and the namesake of this podcast, Dr. Karen Wisely. Joining me is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Samantha Elkins.
As is our custom, I will introduce our movie topic by reading the logline or brief description of the film, and then go over the main cast members and where you may have seen them before. This type of information is helpful to me when I watch a movie, so I hope that it helps you as well. The logline for Milk. The story of Harvey Milk and his struggles as an American gay activist who fought for gay rights and became California's first openly gay elected official. Look, as an editor, the use of the word gay 3 times in one sentence is enough, a little much for me, but I think they wanted to get through to people that it's about something gay, okay? But here we go. It stars Sean Penn as Harvey Milk, a role for which he won an Academy Award. You may know Sean Penn as Jeff Spicoli in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, or in Dead Man Walking, or from Mystic River, where he won his first Oscar, or if you are a Gen Xer like me, you know him as Madonna's first husband. Josh Brolin plays Dan White. You probably know him as Thanos from the last several Avenger movies. He's been in a lot of other things as well, but I know him probably best as Barbra Streisand's stepson. Emil Hirsch as Cleve Jones. You possibly know him from Speed Racer or Into the Wild. I think he also has become controversial in the past few years because of some unsavory behavior. Not cannibalism. But I'm not completely up on the details of that, but I do know that he has there has been some backlash against him recently. Diego Luna plays Jack Lyra. You possibly know him from Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Sorry, I have nothing interesting to add about him. James Franco as Scott Smith. You know him from his Oscar-nominated term in 127 Hours, or from pairing with Seth Rogen in a bunch of stoner movies like Pineapple Express and This Is the End. He also has some unsavory things. Yeah. Allison Pill as Anne Cronenberg, the token lesbian in the movie. Allison Pill was on the HBO series Newsroom and a whole bunch of other stuff. Finally, Victor Garber as Mayor George Moscone. He played Jennifer Garner's father on Alias. Yeah. Milk was directed by Gus Van Sant and released in 2008. It won Academy Awards for Best Actor with Sean Penn and Best Original Screenplay for Dustin Lance Black, who is a very famous screenplay writer who is married to British gold medal diver Tom Daley.
Oh.
And they have, I think, a little boy, a little son now. So, yeah. And Tom Daley knits.
Yes, he does.
Yes.
It's a big deal. Sorry, I'm a knit crocheter person.
Like weird stuff, too. Like bathing suits and things like that. And it's I don't know that should be knitted or crocheted.
No, I can say it probably should not.
Yeah. So that's probably where you know those things. So Milk. Yeah. What do you think about it?
I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Mm-hmm. I shocked at the beginning. I didn't expect it to jump in that fast to be like Milk. The man himself was very promiscuous, and they show that right from the get-go. And I was glad that
It was the 70s.
Yeah. No.
I think it's important. No, I do think it's important to note that it was the 1970s.
Yeah.
In the 1970s, as someone who teaches LGBT history, and that is kind of my area. The 1970s were a very promiscuous period of time because it is the beginnings of this gay liberation movement.
Yeah.
Not that there hadn't been attempts earlier, but it was the time, and it was just we're not looking to fit in. We just want to have fun, and
definitely.
there were bathhouses and all of the other kind of things going on. And then of course what happens next at the not at the end of this movie, but like 5 years after is AIDS.
Yeah. Which they had a little bit like touch on just a little bit. Oh man, I just see James Franco the whole time.
Yeah.
Scott.
His name is
Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is always our ongoing thing. We just kind of refer to him. For him, for once, I actually was like, oh, it's James Franco.
Yeah.
That's James Franco. Yeah.
It was,
because
in
that's
fact,
who he
James
is.
Franco.
But it jumps right in. I was really, really happy that I had waited until my kids had gone to bed, didn't even attempt to try it.
That's a good idea.
It's very much R-rated for a reason. But no, I really liked seeing this journey. Probably only personal complaint would be how many times he fails, which is accurate, before he finally is elected in office. I wouldn't have minded a couple of those being combined into a montage scene. Especially because I liked the very beginning with him, like him talking and recording basically almost a memoir like.
That was what he was doing, because he was had received a lot of death threats.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
He was told that if he
being juxtaposed with the actual footage of that time period and all these, especially gay men in particular being arrested, and how they're literally squeezed like sardines in the back of these cars, and I really, really liked that kind of sequence. And I wouldn't have minded seeing even more like historic footage in the middle of the film, like I said, when it just he kept failing over and over. And I understood he had to step out because he had to like put on the suit and everything and kind of conform to society a little bit.
A little bit. But also, I think it was setting up that, each time that he ran, he got more votes.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
And the reason that he finally was able to break through is because of the move that California made to single member districts.
Yeah.
So he didn't have to win the entire city of San Francisco.
No.
He only had to win his district, and it contained the Castro.
Yeah.
And but there were other people outside the Castro that were in that district, so it wasn't just we have the gay vote and we can.
No.
You still needed to win, and I think that they set that up pretty well with the Teamster thing. Yeah. So,
I like that so often. Like he came back to this, like I want to help the others, and the others weren't just gay people.
No,
it was the elderly, or it was the union.
Yeah,
and so it was. I thoroughly enjoyed seeing that, but also it didn't. This was the part that I really, really liked. It was a gay man who was out and proud to be gay. And granted, we're not seeing his earlier story, which is that he didn't really fully come out until this moment that the movie starts.
Right, yeah.
So we didn't see that struggle to come out, which I'm like, those are great stories, but we've seen those
We have
stories.
plenty of those.
Yeah, we've got that story. I don't need that story in this. So I liked that it really started out that I didn't have to see that story for him. I loved seeing an out and proud gay man in the 70s.
And promoting and pushing his friends and followers to also be out.
Yeah.
And be open with their families. And that's, that is a big thing with Harvey Milk is that he wanted everybody to be able to be out. And look, every year we do an event for National Coming Out Day, and because I think it's important for anyone who can be out, and it is also important, he was handed the phone to people and really forcing the issue. And I do think, they were all grown-ass adults, and so no one was depending on parents or what have you. And they lived in San Francisco in the Castro area. So it isn't like it's going to, you're not going to be probably, well, I was
gonna say, I was like,
where am I going here?
This because
where am I going
actually
here?
point out you can still be killed.
I was literally gonna say you're not probably gonna be murdered, and that is, of course, what happens to him. But it's it's a little bit safer,
especially over time.
Yeah. And so, when we have the National Coming Out Day event, I feel like I have to say, only if you can safely and securely be out. But it is important that there are people who are out and who are living their lives as proud LGBT people, because it does matter for kids. It does matter for other people to be able to see that there is a chance that your life is going to turn out okay. And representation matters, and we keep saying representation matters. I think this film is very important in that. And it ends with him being brutally murdered, but he lived a joyous life, and his friends turned his joyous life into something that was much bigger. Yeah. And so I think this movie is very important, and it's important because it was so well received. Sean Penn got an Academy Award. Every time someone has three names, I always get them back. Dustin Lance Black won an Academy Award for this, and it isn't. Let's see. I think it was 2008, so it's 2009 Academy Awards. It was just a couple of years earlier that we had Brokeback Mountain, and that was up for an Academy Award and should have, I think, universally believed that it should have won instead of Crash.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this also this came out right as it was Proposition 8.
Yeah.
Got passed
in California. That undid gay marriage in California. Yeah.
For a time.
Yeah.
And it just, I think that hit even harder, realizing that as I watched this film. This is the first time I watched this film, and realizing that's happening simultaneously as that's going on in California, and just that the fight is not over by any means, even today.
No.
And the fact that we have to say that we have that caveat, that we have to say, only come out if it is safe to do so.
Yeah. And in fact, as historians, we know that history doesn't exactly repeat, but it seems really familiar sometimes. And the reason for that is that it goes in cycles. And I was explaining this to a class just the other day. The cycles is a big event, then reform and improvements, and then backlash. And we are firmly in a backlash era right now for LGBT rights. The reform, the big thing that happened was Obergefell allowing gay marriage, and we have been in a backlash situation since then. Yeah. And so, if anything, it is even more dangerous right now to be out and open. So, if anybody out there is thinking about it, think about your safety, and don't put yourself in a dangerous situation. for some of us, I can only be who I am. I don't have the bandwidth to be someone else, and so it isn't even a question for me. But this movie, I think, is amazing. It's great. If I were to find something to criticize about it, it would be Jack Lyra. Honestly, that relationship is the one where I'm just like, yes. Why did we need this? Why? And I know it's kind of because there is, and if you watch this movie and you know anything about Harvey Milk, or if you've ever, there's a documentary about Harvey Milk that is called, hang on, I wrote it down because I knew I wouldn't remember. The Times of Harvey Milk, and it was released in 1984, and a lot of the scenes that they do in the movie, in the film Milk, is almost exactly like the actual shots.
Oh yeah.
From that documentary.
Yeah.
And one of those actual shots is him walking to City Hall to be sworn in. And he is walking hand in hand with Jack Lyra. And I'm like, okay, we needed him because of that. But
yeah, no. There's so many things that are really authentic watching it. But yeah, the Jack's character, and I get they even they it's very, very sad, but he does commit suicide, and he did do that in real life, and he did do that, and Harvey was the one to find him on the back porch.
Yeah.
But and so I think it was important to include that. But when you're watching it in the film, I'm screaming the whole time, going, "This is not a healthy relationship."
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, look, I know there was a lot of like hooking up and things, but they seem to have a relationship, because Jack, was really obsessed with him coming home and spending time with him and all of these kind of things. And there's nothing that happened between those two that I would be like, yeah, let's get in a relationship,
No,
I mean,
yeah.
It seems odd. And so that's like that's always, every time I've watched this, it's the only time I'm just like, can we skip this part?
Yeah.
But all right, let's talk about like when he does finally win, because I think I think it's amazing, and I use this in my classes a lot when I'm talking about Harvey Milk, about he really was kind of a political genius.
Oh man, he was because they don't shy away from him. Like, he's not perfect. He's a politician, which sometimes is a good thing, but sometimes you're like, oh my gosh. Like, really? You're going to go that far? Yeah. Like, what?
But the thing I really like is that here he is, like, making news about the first openly gay member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors and all of this, and everything is openly gay. And then it's like the first piece of legislation that he introduces isn't about non-discrimination or any of these other things that he is, really passionate about. It's dog poop. And it's like genius, because that is a problem everyone is dealing with.
Yes.
And dog poop in cities is just,
And I'm so bummed that they didn't include this in the film, because we see some of his political genius with that alone. But apparently in real life, he went and actually himself took dog poop down to the park and planted it so that he could specifically step in it, so that he could show the cameras like, oh, I stepped in dog poop. And I am like, why didn't they include that? Because that's so...
Yeah. Yeah, it really gives you an idea of the genius of it. Yeah. So, and I love that. And then like juxtaposing it with the problems that Dan White had, because Dan White had absolutely no political savvy in his entire body. and should not have ever been.
It's such a great juxtaposition in the film, and I can't speak to what reality 100% on this, but I can say, like, Harvey Milk, he's presented as, he's the outsider, the other, because he's gay. But then he gets into politics, and he's good at it.
And everybody likes him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Dan White likes him because he's the only one that attends the christening.
The only one that shows up. Yeah.
I mean, he's so personal, and he's good at it.
Uh-huh.
And then you have Dan White, who is supposed to be, the upstanding white male Irish Catholic.
He was a policeman first, and then he was a fireman.
And exactly. Like, should be good at politics. And actually, in many ways, he is the other. He doesn't.
Because he's not good at it.
No.
Yeah, he just isn't. And it doesn't mean anything about him.
No.
There are some people who just aren't going to be good at that.
I would not be great at politics. I'd be terrible at it. So, like, and so I'm watching him flunder, and I'm like, yep, that would be me up there. Like,
yeah. So it's, and I like the juxtaposition, and I like that it positions him as, the only one that goes to the christening, and that they have this relationship, and then that Dan White is just angry and devastated because Harvey Milk votes against him. And, and Milk...
It feels like being stabbed in the back from his perspective.
Yeah. And Milk tries to explain it, that it wasn't, it's not a personal thing. It's political, and it's, what you have to do to go along to get along kind of thing. And Dan White just doesn't get it. Then, Dan White goes through some stuff. And he resigns his post. And then the people in the police and the fire department are like, "What are you doing? You're supposed to be our representative on there, and you need to get your position back." And he asks to be named back to the position that he had just resigned, and the mayor says no. And
under Harvey Milk's advice.
Yeah, it's like, no, you can't do that. Yeah, and I mean, he's not good there. I don't know why you would want to keep him there. He wasn't doing any good for you having this representative there.
No.
But go on. And then
I actually felt bad for Dan White in that circumstance because it feels like he's almost bullied back into asking for his job back.
Yeah.
And that his heart's clearly not in it. But then when being told, no, you can't have it back.
Yeah. And being under pressure because those people want you to have it back. Yeah. He was in a no-win situation. And then he did the unspeakable. And that was to get a gun. And he snuck in through the side window. So that he could avoid the metal detectors, which, by the way, seems premeditated to me.
Yeah.
And then he showed up at Mosconi's office, asked to see him. Looked agitated. Mosconi tried to pour him a drink, and he shot and killed Mosconi, slipped out the side door, ran into Harvey Milk, asked to speak with Harvey Milk. In what had been Dan White's old office, and shot and killed him. They didn't really do they didn't really do the trial,
No.
which I think is that was a choice. That was an artistic choice, and you got to do what you got to do. But the trial, I think, is very important because in the trial, Dan White's lawyers will try to submit that he was not in a mental headspace where he could possibly premeditate such a murder because he was depressed, and used as evidence of his depression and inability to executive function. the fact that he was subsisting on a diet completely of sugary foods and drinks.
Yeah,
And
it
it's
comes to
called the Twinkie
Defense.
defense.
Which is not a good name for it because it's really a depression defense, and that's a.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
as I tell my classes every semester, if being depressed and subsisting on sugary drinks and food makes one murder, I would be in prison.
yeah, I was like, oh, crud. I'm like, what did I eat this morning? And
So, so he ends up being, instead of, double murder, premeditated murder charges, which would have put him in prison for 20 to life. Instead, he gets manslaughter.
Yep.
And he is sentenced for, I believe it's 8 years. 8 years.
I know he gets out in 5.
Yeah, he is sentenced to 8 years, and he gets out in 5, and then within 2 years of being out, he commits suicide.
Yeah.
So what happens with Milk is that there is, and still is, an annual Harvey Milk Day where they have a march in San Francisco. It's commemorating Harvey Milk and his life. And interesting note, side note, this is what you get when you book a LGBT historian to talk about the movie Harvey Milk, is that out of the Harvey Milk March in San Francisco comes the AIDS quilt.
Oh, yeah.
Because Cleve Jones, young Cleve Jones in the movie, Emil Hirsch, played by Emil Hirsch, he is the guy who's in charge of this Harvey Milk March, and during the AIDS epidemic, he notes how many people are missing. And so he suggests to the marchers that they turn their placards over on the blank side and write the names of people that they have lost because of AIDS. And they taped these to the side of the federal building, and someone said, that looks like a quilt. And so he gets this idea that they could commemorate the people that were lost to AIDS by making quilt squares. And I guess squares is the wrong way. It's a rectangle. It is a rectangle that is 3 feet by 6 feet, I believe, which is 2 feet by 6 feet, which is, I think, what a coffin. I'm sorry, Samantha.
Man, I knew about the AIDS quilt, but I never realized, oh, okay, yeah, that's deliberative.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. That's really poignant.
Yeah.
And I'm a crafter, so
yeah,
I'm all for.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So yeah, that is that's where that comes from. And Cleve Jones was the founder of the Names Project Memorial AIDS Quilt. So, yeah. So Harvey Milk's the people that he worked with, the individuals, even Anne Cronenberg too, is still was working in San Francisco. I'm not sure if she still is. Because I think, don't quote me on this. I think maybe she might have died a couple of years ago, but because I was like, oh, but she was working in California for LGBT rights up to just a few years ago. So these people in this movie are still the ones that are still alive are very active. A lot of them aren't alive. Harvey Milk, obviously, and Moscone, but also there were a lot of those men who were lost to AIDS. Another person in the movie that is still active and somehow, for some reason, still a senator from California. Anyway, she is the woman, and they used the actual footage of her announcing.
Reaction. Yeah, and
Of her having to, because she was the senior member of the board of supervisors, and so she became acting mayor after the death of Moscone. And she, is it no, it's not Barbara. Diane Feinstein.
Yes. Oh my gosh. She finally came up with a name before I could find it. I was like,
Diane
search.
Feinstein. Anyway, so she would be acting mayor, and she is the one that had to announce to the public that they had died. And she still is a member of the United States Senate from California, even though she's like a million years old. And
Yeah, I think there's a worry about her. Right
yeah,
now, so.
there is some concern.
Yeah.
And there are people who are already declaring, because she's up for re-election in 2024, I think. So, and there are already people who are like, I'm running. So, but yeah, so she's still around and kicking. Yeah. So I thought it was a great movie.
No, honestly, it's a really, really done movie. I don't know. I really enjoyed it, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, as much as obvious, you know what's coming.
Yeah.
There's so much tension. Man, because it's another 2-hour movie, and there's a scene that, oh my gosh, what's his face? Dan White. I forget his name constantly. Dan White's character's talking to Harvey Milk, and he's like drunk in the scene, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna shoot him. Oh my gosh, she's gonna shoot him. Oh my gosh, she's like, I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm waiting for this moment, and then that doesn't happen. Yeah. When looking at like historical inaccuracies in the movie, I saw a lot of complaints online. They suggest in the movie that maybe Dan White was closeted. And there's no evidence to really necessarily support that. There's no evidence to disprove it, technically.
Yeah, no, but yeah, look, he had enough problems.
Yeah, it's like, I looked at it, it's funny, I don't know if I was not picking up on the same subtext everyone else was watching the movie.
I don't know that I picked up on that.
Yeah, no, apparently there's a bunch of stuff, like supposedly the tension between the two or something, and I was like, I wasn't picking up on that at all. Harvey Milk does say, I think he's one of us. And I was thinking more he meant like, oh, he's one of us, like he's an outsider. But maybe that was just me. Like, I don't know. But I know a lot of people were really mad, saying like, no, Dan White wasn't gay, which I'm like, why do we have to get mad about this anyway? And he apparently was not homophobic.
No, it didn't seem that way either.
It didn't seem like that way in the movie either. Like,
I mean, he invited Harvey Milk to his child's christening, for crying out loud.
I mean, he felt awkward, but I felt that was more like
thought that was just him.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't pick up on the more stuff I'd look up people complaining about the movie, like not being accurate and things like that, were things that I was like, I didn't feel like the movie said that.
Yeah.
So I didn't have those problems with it by any means.
And I also really like that they ended with hope.
Yes, they did. They did end with hope, which was, I think, sorely needed.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was a lesson that Harvey Milk even learned on the campaign trail, that like, you can't be, oh, I'm against all these things. You have
to give them hope. Yeah.
No. It's a really good, it's a really poignant movie. It felt like, especially like you were saying, that we have cyclical time periods, that it just right now even more so, with there being so much backlash.
Right now is I think it would mean more right now. So what do you think to wrap up? Would you recommend this movie?
I would highly recommend this movie to show that time period, the fight, to all those moments, even to show like the promiscuity of that time period in this area, which there were complaints about the he was actually even more.
I'm
he
sure.
had a lot of fun.
The movie was only a couple hours long.
Yeah,
though, guys.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you get a snapshot, not the full picture by any means. But honestly, no, I really would highly recommend showing all of that when you're talking about, civil rights for gay people in America and everything, and everything that had to be fought and learned along the way. Very much, I'd highly recommend it. Sorry, there's a bump on the wall.
I don't know what's happening next door, but
This
it
is a really
sounds
quiet
serious.
room, but apparently,
and I think that it's
important.
beautiful to show the ups and downs, because you do go through the gamut of emotions in this film. There are high highs and low lows, and it's when I teach my students about social movements, I tell them, I was like, look, if something good happens, you have to kind of brace yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be backlash, and there always is, and there always has been. And so,
all the good is
really shows you
with a little bad, like he's going to go up to the mic, and that's when he gets his first death threat and everything.
Yeah.
And so it's like even the good moments are tinged a little bit, and it's hard because of that. But I think it's important to note that.
Yeah. I think it does a really good job of showing the entire range of emotional experiences that social movements are.
Yeah.
It is hard. It is difficult, because in order for a social movement to even be necessary, there has to be oppression. There has to be, abuse, and, people are being beaten, people are being killed, and
that's not even looking at the things that these people are facing in their own personal lives, like Jack in the movie and everything, and the depression that we see, not just from their side, but even Dan White's character and everything like that. You're seeing that,
and so whenever you show just protest marches and things, and it looks so hopeful and joyful and all of that, you have to understand the dark that accompanies that, and the backlash that these people are inviting by trying to make society change and be more open. And I think this film does a great job with that.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go ahead and give it the 5 hoots, because it is, one of the most historically accurate movies that exist. It is, it's well done. It's well acted. It is well written. It is well directed. It is just a very, very good movie.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have little things that I can point out inaccuracies on it, but none of those things make the movie worse.
Right.
And so I can't be like, because even everything I'd look up that being like, what are, other historians saying and everything. And I never saw those issues in the movie. And so I'd go 5.
Yeah. All right.
And we're not going to hoot for you today.
No hoots. No hoots. All right.
We're giving it 5 hoots, but we are not giving,
we are
we're
not
going to do
ourselves
that.
hooting.
Yes. We're good.
Jeez. All right. Well then, once again, to the 7 people that probably are going to listen to this, we appreciate each and every one of you.
Yes. Thank you.
Make sure to smash that subscription button, and join us for the next time that we get together. Not sure what it's going to be. Anyway, have a good one, and thanks for listening.